It was March 19th, 2020, and I had just fired 30% of my company. And that day, someone asked me for a raise. And all I can think about is that kid wasn't raised by my wife, because my wife says to my 7-year-old all the time, dude, read the room. Read the room.
Read the room.
That's
I love
it.
that.
You're listening to Let Me Speak to a Manager with Frank Cava and Ian Matthews.
What a crock of shit.
Yeah, that was hot mic, Sam.
It's 30 minutes away. I'll be there in 10.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Frankie!
Ian, you handsome son of a bitch.
Frankie, we were going to dress up like Miami Vice today and do a Scarface episode, but we got our messages mixed up a little bit. But in the chat, make sure to tell us if you want us to do that Scarface episode.
So I got the glasses. I got on the pink shirt. I have the jacket. I have the 80s Coke beard, which basically just let the beard grow and let happen what happens. No
And you've got like a couple of blotches on your beard there that could be cocaine that like kind of fell off a little bit. So it could be a little bit like the last scene.
I can't remember if I told you this. When we were in Spain, I shaved one day because I didn't want to go find a fucking barber. Then I didn't want a month's worth of facial hair. So I shaved one day, and then my kids didn't recognize me. And then when my beard started growing, like 3 days later, like literally that's all it takes. Like I start having a beard in 2 or 3 days. Max goes, "Dad, good news. The white ones are grown in first."
Good news. That's amazing. I love that.
Manny got tall and skinny over the summer, and poor Max, he did not meet a sweet or treat he didn't eat. I think the kid put on 10 pounds.
So is Manny taller than Max now?
Manny is 2.5 years younger, so he's not taller than Max, but he's taller than Max at the same age.
Yeah, but he's getting close to Max at this point.
Yeah, like I didn't see them for a couple of weeks, and then one of my friends saw him. He goes, "Man, Manny got tall and skinny." I'm like, "Noticed you didn't mention that about the other one." But I'll tell you a funny story real quick. So I'm coaching. It's amazing how few people volunteer to coach. I was like, I'll coach, I'll assist, I'll coach, I'll do whatever. And I became a head coach of both of my kids' flag football teams, which again, like the lack of people willing to actually do any work, which is thematic for today. But I sat down with Max and we looked at all the logos. Guess what logos he liked the best? Like we can pick any logo of NFL teams we want for our flag team.
Lions.
Unfortunately, no. Those are like maybe 8.
Did he like the Dolphins?
7.
So
Falcons. He liked all the birds.
Falcon's a cool one. That's
he did.
Really
Dad,
cool
look at that. It's a bird. It's tough. It's black and red.
Falcon is actually my son's high school, Madison High School. They have a Falcon. They're the Warhawks. That's just that's a cool logo.
So he's not going to listen to this till he's much older. I picked the Falcons 1. I picked the Chargers 2, and I picked the Dolphins 3. I'm a Dolphins fan. That's why I picked them. And as a kids, we were the Chargers, and we had the powder blues and the dark blues. So that I thought those were cool. So
one of the benefits, and there aren't many, of coaching youth sports, especially for a house league, is you get to pick the logo. So we were the Tigers for years in Little League until it got chosen for us. But
exactly,
I had lots of Tiger hats already. This is what we're going to be. I didn't have to be too adaptable in that regard
because we had you were the Muck Dogs and we were the Mighty Muscles. He asked me something like, "Dad, can we be the Ass Farts?"
Ass Farts would be awesome. That's
not a real team.
Honestly, the Detroit Lions should change their name to the Ass Farts based on the play that I see on the field most weeks.
This is hysterical. They watched some
Detroit
video.
Ass Farts.
They were really, really well behaved from what I'm told, because they flew back separate from me from Europe. And they got home and they're like, Dad, we learned the coolest thing. I was like, what? That's some movie they watched. It was like, there's something called poo-poo with a hint of caca. Like, we could use that whatever you'd like.
So this week, we want to talk about a trait that's pretty common in people that find success, and also a lack of this trait we find is the downfall of most people who lose their jobs. And we're in a market that is pretty bifurcated. It really depends on the industry. And some people are going through a surge of market, an incredibly hot market. There are some aspects of this market that are horrible. If you're in mortgage banking, you're not feeling like you're in a hot market. If you're in home building, you're not feeling like it's a hot market. If you're in tech, it's feeling pretty hot. If you're in consumer, you're doing pretty well right now. And depending on what market you're in, I think it dictates a lot of how adaptable and willing you have to be to change, to do things that are outside of your normal strength. But I was sharing with Frank before we hit record today, and we were trying to figure out what to talk about. And as most people that listen to this know, for a living, I train people. I coach executives, managers one-on-one. And when it gets to a place where someone's not going to make it, and managers tell me like, listen, I think I'm going to move on from this person. Am I missing something? Is this something you've talked to them about? These traits are the reason why I'm going to fire them. And it's always the same, Frank. It's never something new. It's never something that we hadn't talked about. It's something we talked about repeatedly. In most cases, they knew it was something that they were struggling with. They just didn't take it on. They didn't want to change. It wasn't something that they would argue with me on. It wasn't a trait or a behavior that they would say, no, I think you're reading that wrong. It was like, no, you're right. I've got to get better at that. But we are always having the same conversation that they had to get better at it, and they just didn't take the action. They didn't want to adapt. They didn't want to change. They didn't want to be uncomfortable. And now they're stuck in a place where they're really uncomfortable because they're going to be looking for a new job, something else to do.
So I have a question for you. Do you remember the first time you felt it where the market was different at work? I can think of it specifically, like where
in any market changing.
Yeah, but I would say the first time you realized it.
Mine was 100% after 9/11. My business, interesting enough, it was a little bit like COVID for us with real estate, Frankie.
Yeah.
It went dead silent. No business, no purchase orders cut. Everyone froze. And then I got red frickin' hot, because what came out of 9/11 for us was a little power surge where people started building power plants everywhere. It got really crazy. But it was a really scary 3 months where no matter how much hustling I did, nothing happened. And our company actually started laying off. And then it overnight, all this power demand came out of nowhere. And then we were chasing our tail trying to rehire really fast. But I remember it was almost within 24 hours knowing I'm in deep shit here with this 9/11 thing. Everyone's scared and not going to the office and not buying.
I'll tell two quick stories, and I'll tell you the point where I remember it the most. So the question is, when did you feel the market was changing, right? Or when did you notice something was kind of changing under your feet? The first one is we were going to see a Dolphins game when I was 10. And my dad goes, we're going, but it's really expensive. I said, should we not go, Dad? He goes, no, we're going to go. He goes, but we might not be able to afford it someday, so we may as well go now. And I was like, okay, this isn't guaranteed, so let's go have a great time because I might not be going back. I do remember that. I do remember a meeting that we were in where Newman had a meeting with, back then it was Dwight, and they basically said, look, if you have any skeletons in your closet, get them out. 9/11 had just happened within the last 10 days, and they're nobody's going to be paying attention to the balance sheets right now. So if there's anything that you need to get on the books, if we're going to have a bad quarter, let's have a bad quarter now.
Kitchen sink quarter.
Throw it
in.
That's it. Anything bad, get rid of it. The one that I remember the most was I was in a leadership position. I think I was a general manager. and I took my entire sales team out for dinner. And this was completely legal back then. And I took them to the nicest sushi restaurant in Charlottesville. And I remember I submitted the receipt, because they didn't give you corporate cards. You just had to submit the expense reports. And someone goes, "Yeah, that was a good thing to do about 6 months ago." It's like, ooh, I probably overspent based upon where the market is. Noted. I didn't say anything. I just swallowed. It's like, am I going to get my $1,000 back? And I did, but I didn't bring up anything even close to that going forward, because the market had shifted, but I hadn't shifted how I handled what I was going to do as business, right? Like a nice dinner became a couple $100, not 1,000, because the market had changed. And I remember like feeling that, like really, and I was like, God, I hope I don't get stuck with this bill.
I'm gonna add one more to that as well, and I'm gonna use my time at the same company when I was at MBR. This is after the downturn happened,
Okay.
and Dodd-Frank was put in place. So Dodd-Frank are their two senators that put together a bill that was basically a financial regulation bill. So it was a bill that governed how consumers were disclosed various things in the financial world. And I remember reading the bill and being like, wow, like that's a lot. Who's going to manage all this? Like it was crazy. And it was in the back of my head where I was like, this is going to be a hassle. And then it goes in place, and I'm still doing my normal Ian stuff. I'm out hustling. I'm trying to add new people. I'm pushing revenue, trying to make more money on the top line, being largely a sales leader, profit center leader. And we got our first internal audit in the company. And I remember it was like one of our better offices, like that's usually gets like a 99 audit. You remember those audits, right? You get
Yeah.
If you didn't get like a 99 or 100, someone yelled at you normally at MVR. They were moronic about those internal audits. But I remember it was like one of our offices that was always squeaky clean, like Syracuse or Pittsburgh, that always got 99 or 100. They got like an 86. And I remember everyone lost their mind in corporate. Like, heads need to roll. What's going on? But I remember reading through the audit and seeing all kinds of shit that they didn't used to look for, and being like, oh man. And then like in quick succession, a second branch failed the audit. And then right there, I knew if I don't adapt as a vice president in this company, if I don't adapt where I'm spending my time, I'm going to lose my job. I knew it right there. Like the wind is turned. Everything is internally focused right now, because you know, MVR would rather we didn't make money in mortgage than go lose our license or go embarrass the company in some way or get fined, you know, because we weren't following a federal law. So after I saw that second one happen, I remember I pulled my team together and I was like, listen, you're not going to love this. We as managers are going to dive into every file. We are going to audit these things. We're going to build checklists. We're going to do twice the work other regions are doing, to the point where, Frankie, I had a newborn baby at home, and I would have a rubber thumb on, and I would be going through 15 files, spot auditing loans from my region and calling and sending emails to loan officers at like 6 a.m, like, just reviewed your Kava file. What the F? Like, you're missing this disclosure. You're missing this. It doesn't have signatures. You don't have a checklist. I hated it. Oh my God, that was not in my bones to be a friggin' auditor, like thumbing through loan files. I'd much rather be focused on sales, relationship with the builder. Yeah. But I knew the people that don't take this serious, and there were some managers who just would complain all the time. Oh, you're auditing more. You're looking at too much stuff. And Frankie, they all lost their jobs. The ones that fought it lost their jobs. Those of us that realized the wind changed, and right now it's time to hunker down. And I didn't ask, it wasn't like all that extra work. I was like, someone needs to pay me for this. Nope, I got it. It was like, right now, the time is to go figure this out. And later I'll worry about myself and everything else.
despite the fact that I'm dressed in my best Miami Vice clothes, because I thought we were going to do an 80s episode today, I ended up having to let somebody go this morning. And I hate those moments. They suck. And like, I'm the one who still has a job at the end of all this. They suck. I don't even bring it up to my kids anymore because they'll always ask me about it. Like, they don't understand it. So I'm not going to get into the details of what I said, but there was a guy that we let go and he should have seen it coming, but he didn't. And when you're in this office and there's a severance agreement in a manila folder in front of me, like, it's not time for performance review. Those moments are over. And he goes, I find this to be blindsiding. And I said, well, that's part of the problem and the reason that you're here. And he goes, can you tell me why? I said, yeah. Again, I'm not going to go through a performance review, but I'll give you 3 examples. And the 3 examples I gave him were right off the cuff, and they were tough to deliver. And I kind of get a little nervous when I say that because I know I'm kind of being a dick and I'm being a little bit more forceful than I want to be. And honestly, when it ended, the manager who was in with me was like, that was a little bit more aggressive than it probably should have been. And I said, I get it. But I was asked, I delivered it. But I don't think the important thing is what I said or the 3 bullet points. I think the important thing is, when did I develop that skill? And I remember I developed that skill in about 2006. I'm the son of a school teacher. My mom is the nicest person on earth. She sends out thousands of Christmas cards. Everybody gets a gift and a hug. I grew up with that. And I also grew up with a dad who was not that. And I had to find my own way in about 2006 because I realized if I didn't start to fire people and lean into the culture, they were going to come for me. And I think that's when I got permission to be a little bit more blunt and a little bit more honest and to just confront difficult situations. And it's not something I've had my whole life. As a kid, I didn't have it. I used to be happy-go-lucky. So I developed it over time. What it's given me as a manager and a leader is an ability to just deal with things when they come up. I did get complimented from a manager that we both know at some point. Somebody did something and I pointed it out immediately in front of everybody. Like, hey, the way you handled this. And I didn't put him on blast. I just gave him a little tweak. But because I was able to give that little tweak, the manager said to me, this is 20 years ago, that's rare that you can do that you can literally stop what you're doing, give someone feedback, not let it linger, and just move on. And the upside of it is you deal with it in real time. If it's really, really important, or if it's private, you have to deal with it later. You have to kind of couch it. But if you're saying, hey, by the way, as we're doing this, could you do this and this, or could you get a little feedback? You're giving people feedback throughout. I hired a consultant who used to work for the company, and he would always write up these quarterly assessments. And I asked Carla, I said, I don't do quarterly assessments. She goes, nobody who works for you struggles with feedback. You give it in real time. And it's something that they don't have to wait a quarter for. They're like, if you're paying attention, it's coming. So those are the things that if you want to develop a little bit of edge inside of how you do your work, or you want to get real results with people, you pick and choose your spots. But if you can deliver it and you can synthesize it, deliver it in real time, and then follow up on it, that's the kind of stuff that allows course correction as you're moving. It doesn't allow big problems to develop.
But it's interesting is you're saying all of this. I think you're top 1% of managers I know at looking someone in the eyes and telling them the truth. And even if the truth sucks, you can look someone in the eyes and be like, you're disorganized. I don't think you're terribly hardworking. On top of that, you're not real into self-progress. Like, you'll just say that right to someone's face and move on. Like, you asked, you want the feedback, I'll give it to you. You weren't always that way, though. And I think this comes to adaptability, because I can remember you and I having conversations because you were kind of tore up about having to let go of some people. And I didn't love it, but I had been through it once. So
you at GE was a completely different culture than it was at NVR.
But the first time I ever had to let go of people, it was really hard for me. And giving people direct feedback was hard for me. I was a kid. GE kind of taught me that, and I adapted. The people that didn't adapt to GE didn't have jobs. You couldn't be a manager there if you didn't. Right. So when I got to NVR, I had already adapted. Now it was part of me. You hadn't been through it yet, but I did watch you. You went from not being comfortable with it to getting really comfortable at it, because the truth is the division managers that didn't get good at that weren't around. That was part of the job. And I just had a conversation with the manager this morning, and they were talking about a manager that they had to let go. And this individual had a big heart, really cared, really worked hard, but at the core of a lot of the things that weren't working, they struggled to hold their trades accountable. Pretty important in the construction business, right? And some of that was just struggled with the friction, the edge to hold someone accountable, because trades will take what you give them, and making suggestions to some trades. Sometimes a trade needs a kick in the ass. Sometimes they need you to make them compete with another trade or to have some hard conversations. Also struggled with holding the team accountable. Also struggled with working within departments when that department wasn't supporting them, letting those managers know. Everything around it, Frank, was friction, was edge. It really struggled with that, struggled with conflict. And I'm going to give an example on the complete opposite spectrum with one of my favorite clients that I work with. This person asked me for feedback. This was a couple of years ago, and they asked for feedback. And I always kind of break into my, I've always loved Jack Welch's four E's of a great executive. His 4 E's are high personal energy, energize, the ability to energize a team, to get everyone else to work as hard as you do, to keep that pace high. Execution, do you get results? And edge, are you willing to make tough decisions? And I told this person, I said, you've got incredible energy. You energize teams like no other. People want to work for you. They love you. And you are an unbelievable operator. You attack things. You are great at performance management. You solve quickly. You move quickly. If you want the feedback, I think you suck at edge. If I were to say one of these 4 you're not good at, I think you can be soft. I think you need to be prodded sometimes to have tough conversations, to say goodbye to some people. If you want this feedback and you asked me for this, I think the one that I would like to see you improve on is edge. And like 2 years later, Frank, one of the best I've ever, like on your level right there, like one of the best at just direct, no nonsense, can give conversations. And I'm always really proud of it, because I honestly get nervous sometimes when people, it's different when I'm your boss and you ask me for feedback. Well, I'll give you feedback. I'm paying you. I want things a little bit different. When you're paying me and you ask for that feedback, I hesitate sometimes. Can I be as direct as I want to? Because some people say they want feedback, but when you give it to them, they're not sure they want to talk to you again, because that was hard to hear.
Right.
So I'm always like, should I really say exactly what I want? But when I find someone that I work with, both of these individuals, the one who improved a lot and the one who lost their job, I gave that same feedback. It's exact 4 E's. I said it to both of these. One gave me lip service and said, I appreciate that feedback. Thanks. I'm going to work on it. In every conversation, they would agree that they needed to work on it. Never did. The other one, I never talked to them about it again. They just got awesome at it. And now they're every bit as good as I am at the thing that I told them they needed to get better at. That's how you get promoted in a company or lose your job. You take some feedback, you adapt, you change, you improve, people notice it, and you grow. Like, it's that simple.
I have a friend whose dad left when he was young, and he's got a sister. The dad leaving for the sister, who's a little bit older, was the most tormenting situation in life. And for my friend, it was empowering, right? It wasn't enjoyable, but it was something where it's like, I'm going to become the opposite of that. And like, I know what I don't want to be, and it's that. And it defined the sister. And for my friend, it was kind of a catapult into something completely different. It makes me think of the book Freakonomics. There is a pimp who they talk about in Freakonomics, the book. And the pimp had like 20 some odd kids. One of the kids became the chief of police, and one of the kids was on death row because they did a lot of bad things. Do you remember the answer to how you ended up here? They asked the same question to both of those two kids. you remember it?
I remember the story of the kid that could have went to the gang and didn't. I remember that whole study, but I don't remember his answer.
Both kids had the same answer. With the way that I was raised, how could I be anything else? And they ended up on opposite ends of the spectrum. So it all comes into internalizing, right? What are we going to do with this feedback, and how are we going to go and we're going to grow with it? I don't know where this came into my vocabulary, but I talk a lot of times about developing another pitch. And we were talking in the beginning of this about one of my favorite pitchers, a guy named Roger Clemens. Roger Clemens is the only person in Major League history to win the Cy Young Award, which is the award for best pitcher, 7 times. Like when he dies, I'll probably name an award after him. He was that good, right? But there was a long-time hitter in Major League Baseball. Ian and I were talking about this before we started, and he never threw that guy a fastball because the guy would smash the ball over the fence. So he never threw him that, even though his best skill was the fastball. He knew not to use it against this particular guy because that guy could he could hit anybody's fastball. So he threw all of his other crap, not the fastball. He didn't use his God-given ability. Dana White, in an interview I saw, said the most amazing thing. He goes, "Do you want me to tell you what discipline is?" He goes, "Discipline is when you can afford anything you want in the world and you don't always indulge in it." That's what it is, right? Like he could be 800 pounds, but he isn't 800 pounds. He has the budget. He can get the most expensive wine, the best cheese, all the meats, whatever he wants. He can have fucking cheesesteaks flown in from all around the world and eat them at every meal. But he doesn't do that because he doesn't want to be 800 pounds. It's self-discipline. So it's not what we're told. It's not what we know. It's what we synthesize and make our own. And once you do those things and kind of go to the next step, the edge is part of it. But being able to take these things where you know you're not strong and turning weaknesses, which being blunt was a weakness of mine, but I realized I'd become a dinosaur and I didn't want to become a dinosaur. I needed to adapt and be able to deliver those things. And I had that conversation with my mom at one point, the school teacher, and I told her that I have to do these things. And she goes, "I couldn't do it." I said, "Well, I need to, or they're going to come for my job."
If you could order cheesesteaks from all over the world, would you, or would you just get them from Philly? Like, are there places in the world that make better cheesesteaks than America? Like, where are these amazing cheesesteaks around the world, Frank? Who's making cheesesteaks?
So I was in Europe for a month. The things that they smother.
Did you eat cheesesteaks there?
Like, they have everything smothered in bread. Like, it's the most, like you and McHenry.
Only Frank Cava goes to Europe and he's like, "You wouldn't believe the cheesesteaks."
Enough. So you and McHenry get on his plane and flying around the world, and what does he do? He has cheesesteaks brought in from all these different places. 3 different kinds of cheesesteak. The point, yes, I want to eat cheesesteaks at every meal. Like, could you imagine having nothing but a diet of cheesesteaks, ice cream, and pizza? Like, if I can do that and get abs, like, I'm in.
You got me really hungry for a cheesesteak. Actually, the sandwich shop right beneath my office here makes an amazing cheesesteak. So I might be doing that when I get off the call with you for sure.
There's a guy that on Facebook, or one of the reels that you get addicted to on your phone, he makes this amazing grilled tomato sandwich. And before like all the tomatoes go out of season, like I can't wait to make it. Makes his own homemade mayonnaise, and he grills the sandwich with the bread and the mayonnaise and the tomatoes. Like, I cannot.
Homemade mayonnaise. Now you got me on that one. You got me on that one.
Oh, mayonnaise is the easiest thing in the world. All you need is an egg, a little salt and pepper, and olive oil.
My wife just hates mayonnaise. We can't have it in the house. If I buy mayonnaise, she will throw it in the garbage. She doesn't even want to look at it when it's in the refrigerator. So
we got off track here, pal.
I do love some mayo. So in business, I'm showing a slide right now. This is right out of my class, Leadership Essentials. There's 4 different business situations. And one of the things that I teach is how important it is to get aligned with your manager and get agreement on what's the challenge we're facing. And the 4 situations are startup. And startup doesn't just mean startup company. You can be a startup within a big company. You could be, going after a new product line. You could be responsible for a vertical that hasn't been explored yet. You could be in a, I had kind of a startup when I started at GE, so huge company, but they gave me a developmental territory. So I had to go kind of build some things. You could be a startup market. Frank could say, hey, I'm 100% Richmond now, but I'm going to go do Tampa. I'm going to go do what I did here, but do it in Tampa. Well, people working in that office would feel very much like it's a startup. They don't care how long Frank's been in business. There is sustaining growth. So that's just, you're doing well, things are going well. We got to scale up. We're scaling, we're adding people, we're adding resources, we're adding systems, process to be able to handle the weight of the volume that we're growing. The third is a turnaround. Pretty obvious. It's broken. It's on fire. We're losing money. There are urgent problems everywhere. We have a ton of turnover. We can't retain employees. And the fourth is a realignment. A realignment is performance is still okay, but it's drifting a little. And we need to change because there is change coming to our market.
Right.
And so the two that I find hardest, startup is pretty obvious what's in front of us. We got to get resources. We got to find new customers. We got to all work our ass off. We're burning cash. Sustaining growth, pretty simple. Adding resources, that's just keeping up. You're just keeping pace in the water and not drowning. The realignment and the turnaround look a little bit similar because they both require a high degree of change. The difference is, Frankie, a realignment is Blockbuster Video in 1999 saying, this Netflix thing is a fad. I don't think people are really going to want to keep getting DVDs in the mail. That's a realignment. That's the challenge with the realignment is the numbers are still good. That's Toys R Us in 2001 saying people are not going to buy toys from Amazon online. They want to bring their kids here. They want to, you can picture executives saying they didn't want to change. Like, let's not overreact. Barnes and Noble, let's not overreact. People aren't going to buy all their books online.
Right.
That's a realignment. Change is needed. And if you don't change, it's existential, but it's not obvious to everyone. You have to convince them, you have to sell them. A turnaround is more like Toys R Us in 2008. They've already shut 70% of their stores too late. But by then it's pretty obvious to everyone that Amazon's kicking the shit out of us. And so getting people to change at that point is not that difficult. And where I find a lot of people screw up here, Frankie, is they, one, don't recognize the business situation. They don't see the wind changing. When I told the story about Dodd-Frank coming in and having to audit all those files, we were going through a realignment and people didn't see it. There were some people that stubbornly kept fighting it and thinking it was going to go back to the way it used to be.
Or people didn't want to see it.
They didn't want to see it. And I had a guy, he was a peer of mine. So this guy was, he was like a region VP in Baltimore, and he wasn't adapting at all. And, the market had changed. We had a new president who'd been in place for a couple of years. And at one point, this president came to me and said, I can't have this guy work for me anymore. I'm going to give him to you. I'm going to see if you can, I think he can help you a little bit with a few of the Maryland branches, do as you see fit, but he's too stubborn, won't change. I don't know if maybe you can connect with him or not. But anyway, this president tells them of this, but the way he delivered it to him was a little soft. It was a little bit like, here's an opportunity, for you. You're going to learn a lot from Ian. I think there's a lot of things you can do to help. But when I met with the guy, he was like, okay, so, what are some areas you want me to change? And I was way more direct. I was like, listen, you're going to do it the way I was doing it in my region. We're not going to go stubbornly stick to, because you haven't been changing. So you're going to have to do this, this, and this and get on board with what we're doing. And he was like, well, why did I get promoted if we're not doing anything? I'm like, you think this is a promotion? Like, how do you think this is a promotion? You went from reporting to a president to reporting to a region manager. Like, do you really think this is a promotion? Like, can you not read the tea leaves of what's going on here? And he could not change. And we gave him an opportunity, go into these branches and add value. He wasn't at the branches. He was kind of creating more friction. And ultimately I had to let the guy go because he couldn't adapt. He couldn't change, Frankie, but also he didn't see the need to. He was too dense to understand that I was sort of his last chance. I was not, just we weren't all getting promoted together. If you don't change, it's not going to work. And so I see a lot of people really screw up on misreading the climate and the business challenge that they're up against.
I'm trying to think of like why that happens, right? Is it a fearfulness on wanting to adapt? Is it not understanding the skill set? Is it like what causes it in people? Like why do some people, you coach people?
Well, why don't you think of yourself, Frankie? You moved so fast in MBR getting promoted. And there were so many times, even when you were in construction, you got promoted up where other people wanted that job and they had 10 years of experience on you and they were irritated that you got the job. But why were you getting it? It wasn't because you were a good bullshitter. It was because you were adapting to what the company was asking of you and they weren't.
I'm going to pull something up. I just found this. Let me see if I can share this. Give me a second. So when I was in Spain, if I was going to ask you who made the best wooden ships, I know it seems weird. Who made the best wooden ships in the world? Do you know?
When?
Wooden ships, back when ships were made of wood.
I mean, the Spanish were famous for their armada. The Spanish armada, I would say, Spain. I would throw out England for some of the best navies of all time. I would also throw out Portugal. Portuguese had a really good navy.
So I found this picture fascinating. It's small, but you can see it, right? So this is the first time I've ever been to a shipbuilding yard. This was in Spain. This is how they built the Spanish Armada. Look what they did with the trees. They actually grew the trees into the shapes they needed it for the boats. I've never seen that before. So like, if you look at the very bottom of the picture, like you can see like there's the right angle there that they needed for part, and then you needed the hull. So they actually grew the trees wide so they could have the hull. So if you're not looking at this, right? So what they did is they bent the trees to fit the boats that they need to build. And you got to think like a tree grows really slow. Awesome. So you have to think 50, 100 years in advance. Like you don't just become a good shipbuilder. Like you have to think of it for over time. So like how fast does a tree grow? Like really slow. So like I found that to be like, as you're talking about adaptability, like think about like 100-year plan. Like they literally leaned into it 25 to 100 years in advance of when they're going to need these ships. And that is from the part of Spain where they built the most ships, the northern part that was all around. So literally like human history going back, we've done everything that we're going to do. It's just a matter of like rhyming it to something that's happened in the past. There's adaptions, but that's really it. Like we have all the skills we possibly need, but it comes into, are you willing to adapt? Do you have the patience for it? Do you have the will? Like when you read about wars, do you know this statistic? I bet you do. Do you know how many Americans we lost in World War II versus how many Russians were lost in World War II?
Oh, it's close to 100 to 1. It's like an obnoxious number.
I think we lost 200,000 and they lost like 11 million.
Yeah.
Absurd, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you know how many Vietnamese died in the Vietnam War versus how many Americans?
We lost a lot more than the Vietnamese.
No, the Vietnamese lost into the millions. We lost 84,000.
Really?
Yeah. You don't have we don't have the political, we don't have the will. And I get it. We don't have the will for our people to die at war. We just don't. That's just not our will. But the will of different things, like if you will it. So like if you look at like I think it comes into realization 1 and then will 2, right? So we're talking in a business setting. You have to realize you're on the outside looking in. And you have to know these moments. Most of the time, I can remember 3 distinct feelings. I'm the outside looking in. I need to adapt. I remember adapting and being on the inside looking out. And I also remember no longer being part of the plan. Like I've had that a couple times. Like at NVR, like towards the end, like I wasn't part of the plan anymore. Like my time had gone and I was stepping out. When I had the consulting job, like I no longer was inside the tent. Everybody kind of knew it. And it was, but the first thing is you have to know it. And then once you know it, then you can adapt to it and you can kind of build. But you so I think as I wrap this up, it's pretty clear. You need to kind of be self-aware, one, and then two, are you willing to adapt your skill set so you don't become extinct?
I think all of that's accurate. The last thing I'll just leave it on is if you find yourself, if you're in sustaining growth, you can ask for more. That's a good time to ask for more money, to ask for more opportunities, more titles. But if you find yourself in a turnaround or a realignment and you are dealing with a really tough market and someone asks you to take on more, this is not the time to ask what you're going to get in return. I find that some people are so dense about why they've been asked. So taking my guy in Baltimore, he wanted to know how much money he was getting for some of this. He wanted to know, does my title change? And I remember just thinking like I'm taking on extra right now and I'm not getting any of those things. You have to realize that sometimes you're going to be asked to do more, to handle more, to bring it in and get nothing in the short term. You have to, and that's where you have to ask yourself, do I trust my organization or not? And if you trust your organization, don't expect flowers for jumping in, rolling your sleeves up and doing a little more today when the chips are down and the profit's not there. If you are a part of the solution to get that turnaround to actually happen, people who affect turnarounds end up making a lot of money, but you got to know your timing of when you're asking for something. Give first. You can ask later once you've delivered some returns.
It was March 19th, 2020, and I had just fired 30% of my company. And that day, someone asked me for a raise. And all I can think about is that kid wasn't raised by my wife, because my wife says to my 7-year-old all the time, dude, read the room. Read the room.
Read the room.
That's
it. I love that. Frankie, I'm going to read the room and get the hell out of here because we both got meetings to run to. Hey, I'm glad you dressed up for the Scarface episode, even though we didn't talk about Scarface. Hit us up in the comments if you want to see Frank back in this outfit talking about our friend Pacino pretending to not be Italian for an entire movie. Frankie, good to see you.
Always a pleasure, Ian.